Thank you, Mr. Sonu there, and I'm sure as many of COVID warriors like you, on behalf of Arth, we like to thank all of them. But now it's time to change gears. Let's change gears and let's talk about a different topic. Let's talk about democracy. Let's understand the relevance that has come up even more during these times. Let's get a perspective from various parties involved, from the perspective of the government, from the perspective of the opposition, from the voters' perspective. And our next conversation is aptly titled as Role of the Opposition in a Thriving Democracy. In this conversation, we have with us Mr. Salman Khurshid, who is the former Union Cabinet Minister of External Affairs. He has been the Union Cabinet Minister of Law and Justice and the Union Cabinet Minister of Minority Affairs before that. He has written and published books like The Other Side of Mountain, A Home in India, Beyond Terrorism, and many more. In conversation with him, I have Mr. Rasheed Kidwai, who is a prominent journalist, author, columnist, and a political analyst, and the former associate editor of The Telegraph. He tracks government politics, community affairs, and Hindi cinema, and is also a visiting fellow with the Observer Research Foundation. Another interesting conversation coming your way right now.
We have Mr. Salman Khurshid, a distinguished lawyer, parliamentarian, minister, author. You wear so many hats. And today we are going to discuss this aspect about role of opposition in vibrant democracy. So Salman sir, what is your initial thoughts on it? Is there a role for opposition in, so to say, in vibrant democracy?
See, it's very funny. In recent years, our public discourse is kind of a priori for everything. That you conceive a structure, you conceive an argument, and then you want people to line up in that argument. This is happening in our public debate. Why do I say this? I say that people, and this topic itself says, is there a need for a vibrant democracy, vibrant opposition
Yes.
in a democracy? But the moment you mention democracy, it comes with dissent, it comes with disagreement, it comes with a variety of preferences, and it comes with an opposition that consolidates around the variety of opinion that doesn't necessarily tally with or align with the opinion of those who are in power. So this is a kind of a non-question that the moment you speak of democracy, these dimensions are already there. But something has happened to us that we focus on this. We don't seem to focus on what is happening to democracy, but we focus on what is necessary for democracy in terms of opposition. So I think the way of looking at the structure of society, of our polity, etc., that seems to have gone awry a bit. But having said that, the bottom line is, yes, democracy needs an opposition, because without opposition it becomes autocracy, and autocracy is not a good thing. That's what history tells us. And the best of autocracies, the best of elected dictatorships fail the people. This is what history has told us, and I guess that holds as good for our country as well.
So, sir, you have a very rich experience in public life. You have also seen from very close quarters, I would say, rather first-hand, that how opposition and government could work on certain areas, particularly when you and Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee had gone to Geneva on that human rights issue on Kashmir. Would you share your experience of that? Congress and BJP being two poles apart as they are today, but on a national issue they had come together?
Sure. I mean, the premise, inarticulate premise, if you like, of that is that there was an issue on which we agreed. I assume there are many issues on which the opposition and the government of the day should agree, except that we've now reached a stage where if the government does what you like, you will disagree because you have to disagree with government. And if you do something that the government thinks is sensible, the government will reject it and repudiate it because it's coming from you. So that's a problem of our times. I hope that it gets sorted out. But Kashmir was obviously one very important issue on which there has been national consensus, or let me be careful, say there was national consensus. And whether we were talking about domestic politics or we were talking about international politics, there was complete coherence and consensus between the two major parties, Congress then ruling and the BJP that was in opposition. And Atal Bihari Vajpayee was the opposition leader, and he was tall as tall can be, even in opposition. And this is something that we didn't deny, we didn't question it, we in fact endorsed it. And we had a Prime Minister who believed in and needed to, because we were not exactly a majority government. So he had to work along with a lot of people, including the main opposition, to ensure that the work of government continued. So partly out of necessity, partly out of his view of the world, and his personality was such that he wanted to bring people together, and certainly for an important issue like Kashmir. And so I was Minister of State, External Affairs, and he was the leader of opposition, but he led the delegation. Vajpayee led the delegation, and I must say that he was remarkable. He didn't throw his weight. He didn't even let you feel his weight. He was congenial, he was cordial, he was helpful, he was friendly, he was participatory. I mean, as many good words that you can use for him, I would have used those good words. And we worked together wonderfully well. I was already there for about a week or 10 days when he came. And so in the last 3 days, he was obviously to lead the delegation everywhere when we met with counterparts from other countries. And he was spot on. He was wonderful. He was great. And I have an anecdote about what happened when we came back here. India Today put us on the cover, embracing each other, which was done at his house. They took me there to take that picture. And a few months later, we faced elections. We lost, the Congress lost, and I lost too. And he became Prime Minister. Mm-hmm. I managed to talk to him for a moment in some party that was thrown for him, and he asked me what happened. You know, it's so sad that you're not in Parliament with us. And I said, sir, it was your picture that did me in. That was shown around by the Samajwadi Party to show that we were collaborating in politics, and that cost me my seat. And he had a hearty laugh, hearty laugh. So that remains a very fond memory.
Okay. So, but you think that kind of the reason for defeat you are citing, think that there is an element of sort of, intolerance, that in a democracy, vibrant democracy, we are not able to see, beyond this thing about caste, creed, segment. Because why I'm asking this, is several reasons for it. You've been country's foreign minister also. The Pakistanis and some other countries hostile towards us. Sometimes you got this tag of being a show boy or so. How do you feel about these things?
See this business of show boy. I mean, I would not have been the first person to have suffered that. Other people would equally have suffered that right from the beginning of the first generation of top leadership of our country. But that didn't hurt. I mean, we took it in our stride, right? Because that showboy thing came from home. It came from across the border, right? So it would be criticism that one would hear from some silly person across the border, and it didn't matter. It didn't matter because if your adversary, in the sense of being adversaries nationally, if they criticized you, it didn't matter because you were doing it, whatever you were doing it, you were doing, we're doing for the country. But what hurts is when today, for no rhyme or reason at all, for just opening your mouth to say something which is correct, you are told that you should go off to Pakistan, or that you're anti-national. Now, so many people who are really good have suffered being told that they are anti-national, that we have now quite a tribe, so it doesn't matter. You're not isolated. You don't feel like you're the only one being targeted, because there are so many good people who are called anti-national. But for our national profile, for our self-esteem, for our self-respect as a country, and for the perception that we've all had of this wonderful place that we call home, which is India, it's very saddening. It's very saddening that there are people who think so ill of their family. There are people who think so badly of their compatriots, and people who do that not realizing that it's tarnishing your own beautiful motherland.
So in some ways, do you think that fine line between the Indian state and Government of India, which is a political office, that's being blurred? Because if you criticize the government, it is seen as if you're criticizing the Indian state, to which everybody has a sort of unconditional loyalty.
See, I wouldn't just complain about what is happening now without conceding to you that it may have happened, not quite in this manner, it may have happened in our time as well, that we saw ourselves as the last word. We are what we are, and we are India, etc. We may have made that mistake as well, but we did it sporadically, maybe. We did it as a lack of foresight at some moments when we felt very elated, etc. But we didn't do it as a program. We didn't do it as a permanent design, right? Which is what seems to be happening today. And people get away with murderous statements, and then the government turns around saying, well, he's not one of us. I mean, he's not one of us. Where does he come from? Who is he? If he's not an MP of your party, if he's a minister of your party, if he's a functionary of your party, and who says some ridiculous things, and you just say, well, we are not responsible for this. I don't think that these alibis can work. I think people are hurting us, hurting the country, hurting our country dearly. But coming back to the topic with which you started is, so you'll say, well, this may be happening, but where are you? Where is the opposition? And if there's no opposition, why do you blame the government, etc.? Now, I think there is a thing that is going on in the country where there are many people who have suddenly felt that they can take upon their shoulders the combat against communalism, a combat against majoritarian government, let's say. They are in different states, they are powerful, they have strong followings. It may be regional, it may be caste oriented, it may be something else, etc. And as a result, the opposition is not. It's like an amoeba. One day, 25 get together. Next day, they drop 2, and 23 get together. Not the G23, but 23 get together. The next day, they add another 4. They add another 4, and 26 get together. There is a natural leader in everything. And I believe the natural leader is the Congress. We have been the largest, we have been the most prominent, we've been the nationwide party. Nobody yet has stepped out to be a nationwide party in competition with the Congress. And I say that even about Aam Aadmi Party. They may have ambitions to be a nationwide party, but they are not, and they will not be in a hurry. Therefore, Congress, with depleted resources and depleted strength, still remains the one single nationwide party that can take everybody together. What does it take to take everybody together is the big question. Now, Shall we eliminate ourselves in the state of Bengal to take Mamta Di with us? Shall we eliminate ourselves completely in Karnataka in order to take someone with us, or in Maharashtra to take someone with us? That's a very tough question. I remember many years ago Mr. Pranab Mukherjee traveling with us to some party function in the northeast, and we stopped to have a cup of tea somewhere, and he said we were not in power, so he could have a cup of tea with us without any fanfare. And he said that, look, he always had something very pithy and very deep to say. And over a cup of tea, he said, see, the thing with India is that you can either choose to rule at the center or to rule in the states. You can't have both. You can't do both. Now, of course, that very profound statement that he made may be today questioned by what is happening with the BJP. But I do believe that Pranada may not have been wrong, that this may be a passing phase, and ultimately what he said to me or to a group of us will finally prevail.
Sir, when you're talking about vibrant democracy, there is a tendency of people switching sides. I remember reading in your book where you had quoted from that very famous that play, The Man for All Seasons, that for Wales, this kind of shifting loyalty, whether it is manufactured or otherwise, do you think this is also a major challenge to our democracy, parliamentary democracy?
No, I think this is, of course, it's a challenge, but I think it's a deeper challenge to the Indian nation. When I say nation, I mean the people. I mean the community of Indians. Why have we become so vulnerable to winds of change? Why are we so lacking in self-confidence? Why do we need trappings of power, a chair, a label, to be able to say, this is who I am? I've known a lot of top politicians in our country who have, when they've been out of power for a while, and they've said, how do I go and tell people who I am, right? I mean, what do I say who I am? I'm nothing. I'm really nothing. This is very sad. This is very sad for democracy, that someone who has served and has contributed to democratic functioning of our country, by being out of office, should think that he has no stature, no standing. Why should you not have a meaning? Why should nobody want you to inaugurate a school or inaugurate a factory because you're no longer minister? Why doesn't the former aviation minister ever be sought in this country to be a top director of an aviation firm? Why? Why don't people go on a university speaking circuit? Why are they not paid for speaking, etc.? Why should they become pitiable, and why should they become sad examples of failure, simply because after years and decades of ruling the roost, they find that they are out of power because they are not in favor with the leadership of the day in the party, or not in favor with the voter. That's a very sad thing, but it ultimately affects your national character, and it affects, therefore, democracy, and it affects all of us. But it's not just simply democracy and opposition. I think it's something to do with national character.
There is opposition also needs to reorient itself, in the sense, in the light of social media and the kind of new social realities we have. Why am I saying this? This whole idea, you have seen it, the opposition also doing it when the Congress was in power, that disrupting parliament, blocking bills, whether it was an insurance bill or pension bill, and it just, as a reporter, I can tell you, there was all kind of, when Congress was in power, the BJP would oppose the same bill, and when BJP will come to power, Congress will oppose. So this kind of, mindset.
So what is this? What does that show? That just shows who's responsible for it. We may take the rap for it, but responsible is the voter. The voter must adhere to an ideology. I mean, the voter must vote for insurance one way or the other, and not say, well, it doesn't matter, insurance doesn't matter, but what matters is who is the one who's opposing, who's the one who's proposing. We need, which is why I said we need to go back to national character, that you need to go back to people saying, I want this and I will take it no matter what. I've often gone and argued when the decline started of the Congress party in my own state of UP. I used to go and say, look, you're telling me that you will vote for someone who can win, right? I am telling you, you must vote for someone who should win. It doesn't matter that he wins or not, because people lose anyway. Despite your best efforts, people lose. Vote for someone who should win, not vote for someone who will win. That's the critical change that you want in this country. Now, who can shoulder this burden? Who can go out to the whole country and talk about this? People said to us, you don't use social media, so we started using social media. Then people said, social media is not the answer, you have to go to the ground, so we started going to the ground. When we go to the ground, they say, policies are all made there, what are you doing on the ground? You're not here because you want to win panchayat elections, you have to win parliament, you have to win, there's a wind blowing across the country, so you have to be clear on that. You have to be talking about religion, you have to be talking about a temple, you have to be talking about a mosque, you have to be talking about jobs, you have to be talking about... Now that is important, but it's like the story of the father and the son carrying a donkey and somebody jumping up and somebody jumping off and then
both boarding.
So in the end, the donkey and they both end up in the water. That shouldn't happen. So that taking advice is good, but taking only advice and not using your own brains is something that can be pretty harmful and pretty disastrous. But right now, today, there is a formula that the BJP has got which is very successful. It is very successful. If you ask me, no formula, absolutely no formula can be successful for permanence. There is a use by date for every formula, including the formula that they have used, and they may want to use it over and over again. But there will be a time when it will crack, and when it cracks, what will happen, we can't predict. We are not, we're not prescient that we would be able to tell the future. But this country is not made out to be what they want it to be. I am convinced, but I'm in a minority today, and therefore I must be conscious of that.
Yeah. Now we are coming to the conclusion of this very nice conversation, enlightening conversation, I would say. But sir, drawing from your rich experience, there are areas like national security, defense, foreign policy, key economic issues. There is a need for consensus. You have exercised it, you have been a beneficiary, all these things. Now, do you think that kind of trend should continue, and who should bell the cat?
Well, who's to bell the cat? You see, it's always the responsibility of somebody who's in power, because you assume that they're in power, they're more powerful, they have more resources, they call the shots, and they have early knowledge advantage. All those are some things that they have, and therefore they must take the first initiative. And it's important for the opposition to say, we'll not to say we'll spurn the initiative no matter what, because we dislike them. And we dislike them for their social policy, we dislike them for their religious divide, we dislike them for whatever reason. I think that you have to draw a line and say we will continue to dislike them on the other fronts. But on these common grounds, and there may be a few, I wish that they were about education also, but I think it's difficult to assume that they'll be about education. But it can be about housing, it can be about social welfare, it can be about health, it can be about defense, it can be about foreign policy. On these, there is no reason why there should be a difference of opinion, or at least why there should not be adequate overlap for us to be able to work together. But I think the initiative has to come from the government.
The government. And Do you think, I'm saying with a straight face, purely theoretical terms, so don't misunderstand it. This is parliament, in parliamentary democracy, the inner party democracy is a initial ingredient for it?
Well, I see, how can I say to you that inner party democracy is bad? How can I say that to you? But the point is that democracy is not a switch on, switch off affair. Democracy is a process. Democracy is a process. You can't say, I am stepping off here because this train is not moving at the speed that I want it to move. But you must, when you say that, say, I'm getting off here, but I also will pay for my ticket from where I started up to here. But you can't say, I'm not paying for my ticket, I'm getting off here. And then other poor people who didn't even get onto the train get denied that train because you've been on it all the time. So democracy, of course, without any qualification is important. But democracy, I come back to the same thing, is about national character. You can disagree without being disagreeable. You can put your point of view and be prepared to pay a little price. You can't be the favorite of someone who likes to hear good things by saying bad things. You can't be a favorite, but you should know, and you should have the confidence that I will survive. I'll survive with a little less than I would have got otherwise, but that's the price I want to pay, and I must pay for democracy. Democracy can't come with plenty, with everything being in plenty. Democracy comes with a lot of things that are inadequately available.
But this opposition is so fragmented. Is there a UPA? We keep hearing that UPA constituents have gone here. After 14, is there a UPA?
No, I think,
technically, practically?
I think there is a UPA. We have been greatly disadvantaged because for one reason or another, Congress President Srimati Sonia Gandhi was not as much available. Please go back to the UPA that was formed. That the glue to that UPA was provided not by the other top leaders of the country. It was provided by Srimati Sonia Gandhi by taking a walk across to whichever house that Mr. Paswan lived
12
in,
Janpad, yeah.
right? She had that very unique ability, and unfortunately, because of various developments, etc., we've not really have had that advantage. She's still there for us, and we all pray and hope that ultimately she will step out and ensure that these things happen and come together. Because I think despite everything that's happened in this country, her stature and her presence and her just the depth that she gives to politics in our times, I think is incredible.
Thank you very much, Salman Khurshid. It was the most enlightening conversation we had. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you, delighted. Thank you very much.